Have you ever felt like you're just drowning in information? You know, there are endless articles, reports, studies,
Mm.
and you wish there was a faster way, like a shortcut to really get what matters, to grasp the core ideas clearly and quickly.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a common feeling these days, isn't it? The sheer amount of stuff out there can be, well, overwhelming.
Right. And we all have that deep desire for knowledge that's concise, that's insightful. It feels stronger than ever.
Hmm.
And now we've got this tool, AI, that kind of promises to deliver exactly that. But, and this is the big but,
There's always a but.
always, the real value, it seems, isn't just what AI gives you. It's how it helps you truly own what you learn.
Precisely. Owning it. That's the key.
So today we're doing a deep dive. We're jumping into the really fascinating world of how AI is changing education. And specifically, we're looking at its impact on a classic framework, something foundational, Bloom's taxonomy.
Bloom's, yeah, a cornerstone for decades.
Yeah.
Exactly. So our mission, really, is to explore how AI can genuinely lift learning, push us to understand things better, gain new skills, but we also need to look really critically at the hidden costs, the downside of just passively letting AI do the work.
The passive engagement trap. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a real concern.
We want to unpack why the human side,
Mm.
teachers, the power of emotion, and that very personal act of actually owning your knowledge,
Yeah.
why that's all more crucial than ever.
Absolutely essential. It's not about AI instead of humans.
Right. So by the end of this, our hope is you'll walk away not just like informed, but maybe with some surprising new perspectives on how you learn, how we all learn.
Should be interesting.
We're mainly drawing from a really thought-provoking piece. It's called Owning Your Learning,
Hmm.
a human-centered AI revolution beyond Bloom's taxonomy by Ella Khan.
Good stuff there.
Yeah, and we're also bringing in some cutting-edge research, from places like MIT Media Lab and insights from top educational psychologists who are really wrestling with these questions right now.
So solid sources. Let's dig in.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. Bloom's taxonomy. For anyone listening who maybe isn't familiar or just, needs a quick reminder, what is it at its core?
Yeah, good place to start because it really has been so fundamental to how educators think about learning goals.
Huh.
Essentially, it's a hierarchy of cognitive skills.
Like a pyramid. I think
Yeah.
I've seen it shown like that.
Exactly. It's often shown as a pyramid, although interestingly, the original creators didn't really intend it to be this rigid step-by-step thing. It was more about classifying different types, different levels of thinking.
Okay.
So if you picture that pyramid at the very bottom, the foundation, you have remembering, this is just recalling facts, definitions, basic information, like memorizing dates for a history test or the meaning of a word, simple recall.
Got it. Level 1.
Right. Then, just above that, you get understanding. Now, this is a step up. It's not just spitting back facts. It's about actually grasping the meaning. Can you explain the concept in your own words? Can you summarize the main idea? You're interpreting, not just repeating.
Okay, making sense of it.
Exactly. Then moving up, we hit applying. This is where you take what, the knowledge or skills you've understood and you use them.
Yeah.
You use them in a new situation, a concrete way.
Like using geometry principles to actually design something.
Perfect example.
Mhm.
Or solving a math problem you haven't seen before using a formula you learned. You're putting it into practice.
Okay.
Above applying comes analyzing. This is about breaking things down, taking information, dissecting it into its components, figuring out how the parts relate to each other, finding patterns, identifying structures.
So like looking at an argument and seeing how it's built, or
Mhm.
comparing different viewpoints.
Precisely that. Or finding the underlying assumptions in a text, or maybe recognizing bias in a news report. You're taking it apart to understand it better.
Right, higher level stuff.
Getting there, yeah.
Yeah.
Next up is evaluating. This is a really high-level skill. It's about making judgments, judging the value of ideas or arguments or solutions based on some criteria, some standards.
So critiquing something,
Mm-hmm.
saying if it's good or bad or strong or weak.
Exactly. Critiquing a piece of art, assessing whether a scientific study is valid, debating the pros and cons of a policy. You're making an informed judgment call.
Okay, and the top, the peak of the pyramid.
Traditionally, the peak was creating. This is about putting elements together to form something new, something original, synthesizing information in a novel way, designing your own experiment, writing an original story, composing music, developing a whole new theory.
Wow, So producing something entirely new based on everything below it.
That's the idea. It represents the culmination of understanding and skill. This whole framework, it gave educators a common language, a way to talk about moving beyond just rote memorization towards more complex thinking.
And it's been huge, hasn't it? I mean, for
Yeah.
decades, it seems like this has shaped curriculum, teaching,
Yeah.
everything. What made it so impactful back then?
It really was revolutionary for its time back in
Yeah.
the 50s. Before Bloom and his team, learning objectives were often, well, kind of fuzzy, often just focused on memorizing stuff.
Right.
Bloom's taxonomy brought structure. It brought clarity. It offered this systematic, hierarchical way to classify what students should be able to do with knowledge, not just what they should know. That shift in focus was massive.
From knowing to doing.
Exactly. And that clarity allowed educators to design better curricula, with a clear progression of skills. If you're teaching history, you don't just want kids remembering dates. You want them analyzing primary sources, evaluating different historical interpretations, maybe even creating their own historical argument.
Makes sense.
It gave them a tool to align teaching activities and, importantly, assessments to make sure they were actually fostering that full range of thinking skills, not just covering content, but developing minds. Its influence has been just enormous, really shaping how we think about effective teaching and learning.
Okay, it's clearly been influential. But the article we're discussing and a lot of modern thinking points out some key limitations, things that maybe don't fit so well today. What are those limitations we need to keep in mind? Frameworks need updates, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's a crucial point. Even the best frameworks have limitations, especially as the world changes. With Bloom's, there are a few key assumptions baked in, or at least how it's often used, that can be quite restrictive now.
Okay, like what?
Well, one big one is the idea of it being a strict linear path. Like you must climb the pyramid step by step, remembering, then understanding, then applying.
Yeah, that's how I always pictured it.
Right. But think about how you actually learn something complex. Is it always neat like that?
Probably not. Sometimes I try to build something, then realize I don't understand a basic part and have to go back.
Exactly. Real learning is much messier, much more dynamic. You jump around, you might start trying to create something, hit a wall, realize you need to deepen your understanding, maybe even go back to remembering a key definition. It's iterative, back and forth.
So the rigid ladder idea is misleading.
It can be, yeah. It can actually stifle the natural, non-linear way we often explore and learn things deeply. It suggests a fixed sequence that just doesn't match reality.
Interesting. What else?
Another major point is its heavy focus on the cognitive domain. The thinking, the intellectual stuff.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. Bloom's original work actually talked about other domains too. There's the affective domain that's emotions, feelings, values, attitudes, appreciation, and the psychomotor domain, physical skills, coordination.
Oh, I didn't know that. I've only ever heard about the thinking part.
That's super common. The cognitive part is what stuck, what got emphasized. But by focusing so heavily on just that, the application of Bloom's often neglects the crucial role of emotions, social interaction, and even physical engagement in learning. And as we'll get into, that emotional piece, it's incredibly important for how we actually internalize knowledge. People like David Krathhole, who worked with Bloom, really tried to highlight this affective side later on.
So it kind of left out the heart and the hands, focusing only on the head.
In practice, often yes. And the third big limitation is how it's often misinterpreted as being prescriptive, like it's a set of rules you have to follow in order.
But you said the creators didn't intend that.
Exactly. They saw it more as a descriptive framework, a way to categorize objectives. But it frequently gets taught and used like a rigid checklist, master level 1, before moving to level 2. This can really hinder more integrated, holistic teaching approaches that might weave different levels together.
Okay, so linear progression, ignoring emotion, and being too rigid. I can see how those might be problems today.
Right, and these limitations become even more significant when we throw modern technology, especially AI, into the mix. Does AI reinforce these issues? Does it just help with the lower levels, making learning more superficial? Or could it potentially help us overcome these limits and build something better, maybe more human-centered? That's the big question.
That leads perfectly into the next point, because the article really emphasizes something often pushed aside in learning discussions: emotion. It argues that emotional investment isn't just nice to have, it's vital for deep learning. Why? Isn't learning mostly about thinking?
That's the old view, but neuroscience is telling us something really different and, frankly, much more interesting. For ages, we kind of separated thinking and feeling. Reason over here, emotion over there.
Yeah, like Spock versus Kirk.
Ah, exactly. But researchers like Mary Helen Immordino Yang, Antonio Damasio, their work strongly suggests that emotion and cognition are deeply intertwined in the brain. They aren't separate systems working in isolation. Your feelings are actually part of the learning process. They influence how you perceive things, how you process information, and crucially, how well you remember it.
So emotions aren't just a distraction.
Far from it. Think about when you learn best. Isn't it often when you're genuinely curious or excited about discovering something? Or maybe even frustrated but determined to solve a problem?
Yeah, definitely. If I don't care about it, it just doesn't stick.
Exactly. And there's brain science behind that. When you're emotionally engaged, that thrill of insight, the satisfaction of figuring something out, connecting it to your life, your brain actually releases chemicals like dopamine.
Dopamine, the reward chemical.
That's the one. And dopamine does more than just feel good. It actually enhances memory encoding. It helps activate the hippocampus, which is like the brain's memory formation hub. So when you feel that spark, your brain is literally primed to learn better, to make that knowledge stick. Educational neuroscientists like John Zoll and Tracy Tokuhama Espinosa have really explored this connection. It's not just what you learn, but how you feel about it that matters enormously.
Wow. So that effective engagement you mentioned, curiosity, reflection, finding it meaningful, that becomes even more critical when we have AI tools that can just give us answers instantly.
Absolutely critical. This is a point the article and research like Anderson's group highlighted in 2023 really drives home. If AI is just spitting out information and you're just passively taking it in without that spark, without asking your own questions, without reflecting on how it connects to what you already know or care about, well, the learning is likely to be shallow, temporary.
It won't become yours.
Exactly. That emotional connection, that effective engagement is what helps us internalize it, make it relevant, and build real, lasting understanding. Learning isn't just shuffling data, it's a deeply human process, social, emotional, cognitive, all tangled together. And AI doesn't diminish that, it actually makes the human parts more important. Ignore them, and learning becomes just transactional, empty.
Which brings us right back to the human element. If emotion and connection are so key, and AI can't really do emotion, it really underscores why, even with amazing AI, human teachers are still essential. What is it they provide that AI just can't?
So much. The deep dive is crystal clear on this. Teachers offer layers of support and connection that are fundamentally human. First off, think about emotional safety.
Feeling safe to mess up.
Exactly. A good teacher creates a space where you feel okay asking that stupid question, where making mistakes is part of learning, not something to be ashamed of, where you can take risks, explore tricky ideas. AI can give you information, but it can't build that trusting, nurturing environment where you feel safe enough to be vulnerable, which is crucial for real learning.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable being vulnerable with a chatbot.
Right. Then there's relevance and motivation. A great teacher doesn't just drone through the syllabus. They connect the material to you, to your life, your interests, the world around you. They ignite curiosity. They motivate you when you're flagging. They see your potential.
They make it matter.
They make it matter. AI can present facts, but it can't truly understand your hopes, your fears, your unique background, and tailor inspiration in that deeply human, empathetic way. Teachers read the room, see the spark or the struggle in your eyes, and adapt.
And guidance.
Crucial. Nuanced guidance. Teachers watch you learn. They see where you're stumbling, often why you're stumbling. They can clarify misconceptions in real time, offer feedback that considers not just the facts, but your thinking process, your confidence level. It's adaptive, intuitive guidance that's way beyond what current AI can manage in a dynamic learning situation.
More holistic.
Definitely. And another huge piece the deep dive stresses is learning with peers. That social interaction, debating ideas, explaining concepts to each other, challenging assumptions, working together on projects.
Learning by talking it through.
Yes, as the article puts it, the journey must be open, transparent, and shared. That human-to-human collaboration is where so much deep learning happens. You develop communication skills, empathy, how to articulate your thoughts. AI can't replicate that social dynamic.
So teachers are guides, motivators, safety providers, and facilitators of social learning. That's a lot AI can't do.
It really is.
But what about preparing teachers for this? If AI is becoming a big part of the picture, teachers need new skills, right? And the organizations they work for, schools, universities, they need to support that.
Absolutely. This is a make or break point, and the deep dive hits it hard. The success of integrating AI in education hinges massively on teachers being well-trained. And it's not just about basic tech skills, it's about developing specific, quite sophisticated new literacies.
Like what kind of literacies?
Well, first, prompt design. Knowing how to talk to the AI, how to ask questions that get useful, accurate, and pedagogically sound responses. It's almost like learning a new way to communicate effectively.
Prompt engineering, they call it.
Exactly. Then strong AI literacy. Understanding what these tools can do, but just as importantly, what they can't do. Knowing their limitations, their potential biases, being realistic about their capabilities.
Okay, that's critical.
Hugely critical. And related to that is hallucination detection. Generative AI is notorious for just making stuff up, presenting false information confidently. Teachers need to be able to spot these hallucinations and, crucially, teach students how to be critical consumers, how to verify information from AI.
Wow, yeah. That's a vital skill for everyone now.
It really is. And finally, ethical application. Understanding the issues around data privacy, algorithmic bias, ensuring fair access for all students, preventing cheating or over-reliance, guiding students not just on how to use AI, but when and why it's appropriate, and making them think about the bigger societal impacts.
So this whole new layer of professional development needed.
Absolutely. And that puts the onus squarely on educational organizations. Schools, districts, universities, they have to invest in equipping teachers with these skills. Without that support, without that training, the real potential of AI gets lost, and the risks, like misuse or creating wider equity gaps, become much higher. It's about empowering the educators.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the human side, the risks, the need for guidance. Let's flip it now. If it is used well, thoughtfully, with that human-centered approach, how can AI genuinely support learning, go beyond just facts? How does it act as that cognitive scaffold you mentioned?
This is where it gets really exciting, because despite the valid criticisms about surface-level use, AI can be a powerful learning partner when used intentionally. Think of it, as researchers like Holmes suggest, as a flexible assistant that can support you across all those Bloom's levels, provided you're guiding it effectively.
Okay, so break that down. How does it help at each level? Remembering.
Remembering is almost a gimme for AI. Instant quizzes, personalized flashcards based on what you get wrong, spaced repetition schedules to help things stick, translating jargon into simple terms. It's like a super patient tutor for consolidating those basic facts.
Makes sense. Understanding.
For understanding, it can be great. Explain this concept differently. Sure. Give me an analogy. Okay. Adapt the language from my background. No problem. It can provide multiple perspectives, different examples, helping you connect the dots and really grasp the meaning beyond just the definition.
Getting beyond recall. Applying.
Applying is interesting. AI can run simulations. Imagine practicing a complex negotiation with an AI that plays a realistic counterpart, giving feedback. Or learning to code. And the AI acts as a pair programmer, helping you debug, explaining errors, suggesting fixes. It allows for safe, iterative practice.
Okay, that sounds useful. Analyzing.
For analyzing, AI's power in processing information shines. It can compare huge documents instantly, find patterns in data sets a human would miss, identify contradictions, or summarize arguments from different sources. It can do the heavy lifting of gathering and structuring information, freeing you up for the deeper interpretations.
Speeding up the grunt work.
Pretty much. Then evaluating. Here, AI can offer diverse viewpoints you might not have considered. It can play devil's advocate, challenging your assumptions. It can maybe provide examples of strong versus weak arguments for comparison. But, and this is vital, the final judgment, the critical assessment based on criteria and values, that has to remain human. AI can provide input, but you make the call.
The human stays in charge of the judgment.
Absolutely. And finally, creating. AI can be a fantastic starting point. Brainstorming ideas, generating first drafts, outlining structures, creating prototypes. It can help overcome that blank page anxiety. But again, a huge caveat, the core idea, the originality, the intent, the critical choices in the creation process, that must come from the learner. AI is the assistant, not the author, if learning is the goal.
So it can help across the board, but with important limits, especially at the top.
Exactly. We need to be realistic. Not all AI tools are great at higher order tasks. Generative models can still produce shallow or just plain wrong stuff when you get into nuanced evaluation or truly novel creation. So anyone claiming their AI is fully Bloom-aligned, take that with a grain of salt.
Cautious optimism?
That's the phrase. The research shows potential, absolutely, but it's not perfection. It's a tool, a powerful one, but it needs a skilled human, the learner and the teacher, guiding it to be truly effective as a scaffold.
That breakdown is really helpful. But it brings us to maybe the most crucial warning sign, something the article highlights with some really stark research. What happens when AI isn't used carefully? When it's used passively, without that guidance, without the learner really engaging? You mentioned cognitive debt. That sounds serious.
It is serious, and this is probably one of the most critical takeaways for everyone listening. That MIT Media Lab study from Cosmina and colleagues in 2024, Your Brain on ChatGPT, it's pretty sobering. They look specifically at students using LLMs, like ChatGPT, to help write essays, but without much structure or critical engagement.
Unstructured use,
Yeah.
just letting it do the work.
Essentially, yeah. And the findings were alarming. They talked about this cognitive debt, like accumulating negative consequences for your brain function over time from relying too heavily on the AI.
What did that look like practically?
Well, neurologically, they actually observed decreased neural connectivity. Imagine the different parts of your brain involved in writing and thinking, planning, memory, language areas. The pathways between them seemed weaker in students who relied heavily on the AI. Less communication between brain regions.
Wow. So it actually affects brain structure.
The findings suggest that, yes. And this decreased connectivity correlated with real-world problems. Impaired memory recall was a big one. Students just didn't remember the material from the essays the AI helped write, as well as students who wrote traditionally. The AI was doing the cognitive work for them, so their own memory systems weren't getting exercised.
The AI remembered, not the student.
Pretty much. And maybe the most concerning finding, given our theme, was reduced perceived ownership. Students who used the AI heavily struggled to even accurately quote or paraphrase their own essays.
They couldn't remember what their own essay said.
Exactly. It shows a real disconnect. They didn't feel the ideas were truly theirs because fundamentally they weren't. They were generated, not internalized. That's a huge red flag for genuine learning.
That really undermines the whole point of education.
It does. And over time, this pattern led to consistent underperformance, not just on grades, but measurable underperformance at the neural level in their linguistic abilities and in their overall behavior related to the task. The linguistic part is especially worrying. It suggests a potential regression in fundamental skills.
Like reading and writing skills actually getting worse.
That's the implication. If you're not practicing constructing arguments yourself, finding the right words, structuring sentences, synthesizing ideas, those core skills can atrophy. It's the use it or lose it principle applied to critical thinking and communication.
Like letting a calculator do all your math and forgetting how to add.
A perfect analogy. So these findings are a stark warning about passive AI use. They hammer home why we need learning models focused on internalizing knowledge, on owning it. It explains why students absolutely need to be able to demonstrate understanding without AI. If they can't, have they really learned it?
It's not borrowed knowledge, it's own knowledge.
Exactly. And the risk to fundamental literacy skills like reading and writing, that should be a massive wake-up call for everyone involved in education. This isn't about banning AI. It's about understanding the risks of passive use and ensuring we use it to strengthen our human abilities, not replace them.
Wow. Cognitive debt.
Yeah.
That really sticks with you. Okay, so given these risks and the limits of the old Bloom's model, how does Ella Khan's idea in the article offer a path forward? What's this new element she adds? A seventh step.
Yes, and it's a really crucial addition. Khan proposes adding owning knowledge, not just as another rung on the ladder, but as the essential capstone to the whole process. It comes after you've used AI, after you've had teacher guidance, after you've gone through remembering, understanding, applying, creating. It's the final, vital stage.
The moment of truth.
Exactly. It's where the learner must step away from the AI, step away from the scaffolds, and critically reflect. Did I actually get this? Is it mine now? It ensures the knowledge isn't just processed or generated externally, but truly internalized, woven into your own understanding.
So how do you know if you've reached that stage? How do you own it?
The model suggests focusing on some key self-reflection questions. These are designed to push you towards deep metacognition, thinking about your own thinking. The first is, do I understand this information deeply? Not just surface level, but really get the nuances, the connections, the why behind it.
Going beyond just knowing the definition.
Right. The second question, is there anything I am not clear about? This encourages active self-assessment, being honest with yourself about the gaps, the fuzzy areas, before claiming mastery.
Identifying your own confusion.
Yes. And the third, the ultimate test. Can I recall and use it effectively without AI? If you need the tool to explain it or you can't apply it independently in a new situation, you don't truly own it yet. It hasn't become part of your readily accessible mental toolkit.
It's still reliant on the external tool.
Precisely. The knowledge is borrowed, not integrated.
So what does this owning stage really involve for the learner? Sounds like deep self-awareness.
It absolutely is. It's all about metacognition, as cognitive psychologist John Flavel termed it, knowing about your own knowing. Monitoring your comprehension, realizing when you're lost, figuring out how to get unlost. It's also about building genuine confidence in your own understanding, not just in your ability to prompt an AI. And critically, it's about transfer, being able to take that knowledge and apply it flexibly in new contexts without the original scaffolds.
Proving it to yourself.
Yes, reflecting on it, reconstructing it in your own mind, and proving, primarily to yourself, that it's internalized. It's not just data you looked up, it's understanding you've built. This links closely to ideas from educational psychology about self-regulated learning, where learners proactively monitor and manage their own learning process. This is where the student takes charge and confirms, yes, I've got this, and I can show it, even without the AI.
That's powerful. How do you show it, though? Beyond just a test. The article mentions other ways.
Yeah, and this is important. It moves beyond just traditional exams. The goal is to demonstrate genuine, independent understanding. So things like peer teaching. Can you explain this concept clearly to someone else? Answer their questions effectively. That requires deep understanding.
Teaching is the best way to learn, they say.
It really forces clarity. Another way is reflective journaling. Regularly writing about what you're learning, connecting it to other things you know, exploring your own understanding, wrestling with confusing parts, that personal processing helps solidify it.
Making it personal.
Exactly. Or real-world demonstrations. Apply the knowledge. If you learned about sustainable gardening, try planting something using those principles. If you studied negotiation tactics, try using them in a low-stakes situation. Show you can do something with it.
Practical application.
Right. Or even just engaging in a spontaneous debate, solving a completely new type of problem using the principles, or explaining a complex idea simply to someone outside the field. The common thread is independent articulation and application without AI assistance. You're proving the knowledge is truly yours. It's not about ditching AI forever. It's about using it to learn, then stepping away to consolidate and own.
It really shifts the focus to that final internalization step. Now, the article connects this whole approach to joy, finding joy in learning again. That sounds lovely, but how does this model actually foster joy, especially when learning can often feel like hard work?
It's a beautiful idea, isn't it? And it ties back to some fundamental aspects of human motivation and how our brains work when we're truly engaged. The article suggests a few ways this human plus AI model, culminating in ownership, can bring back that joy.
Okay, I'm curious.
First, empowerment. Having agency, having choice in what and how you learn, feeling in control, that autonomy is intrinsically rewarding. It can trigger dopamine. When AI acts as a flexible partner, letting you explore tangents, chase curiosities, test ideas quickly, it amplifies that sense of being the driver of your own learning journey. That feels good. It feels like an adventure.
Instead of just following instructions.
Exactly. Second, engagement. We thrive on timely, relevant feedback. AI can provide that instantly. Stuck on a problem. Get a tailored hint right away. Curious about a connection. Get immediate exploration paths. That responsiveness keeps you in the flow, reduces frustration, and makes the process feel more dynamic and satisfying.
It keeps the momentum going.
Right. Third, it enhances memory through emotional connection. As we discussed, when you're emotionally invested, excited, intrigued, proud of figuring something out, your brain's limbic system gets involved, helping to lock that memory in more strongly. The learning becomes personally significant, not just abstract data.
It means something to you.
Precisely. And finally, perhaps the biggest source of joy is that deep satisfaction of pride. The feeling you get when you reach that owning stage, when you prove to yourself, I genuinely understand this, I can explain it, I can use it independently. That sense of mastery of intellectual competence built through your own effort, even with AI assistance along the way, is profoundly rewarding. It builds confidence and fuels the desire to learn more.
That feeling of, I got this.
That's exactly it. That's a joyful feeling. Now, we do need that caveat again.
Right, the reality check.
Yeah. These are really positive observations, but they need more research across different contexts. And importantly, not everyone will find this joyful immediately. Students facing barriers, feeling anxious about tech, lacking foundational skills, they'll need significant support, guidance, and scaffolding to get there. It's not automatic. We need to be mindful of equity and access.
It requires careful implementation.
Absolutely. But the potential for rediscovering that love of learning, that's what makes this vision so compelling.
So bringing it all together, Bloom's evolution, the importance of emotion, teachers, the potential and pitfalls of AI, this idea of owning knowledge. What's the big picture? What's the ultimate vision for learning as we move forward?
The core message, loud and clear, is the future of learning is human plus AI. It's not AI replacing humans, it's AI augmenting humans, helping us rediscover the joy of learning, not by giving us answers, but by being a powerful partner while we find them.
A co-pilot, not the pilot.
A great way to put it. AI can help us test ideas faster, create prototypes, explore complexity, and then, crucially, help us test ourselves, engage in that metacognition, ensure we truly own what we learn. It's about using tech to build our intellectual independence, not dependence.
But it won't happen by itself.
Definitely not. It requires thoughtful design of the AI tools themselves built for learning, not just task completion. It requires strong ethical oversight addressing bias, privacy, equity. And it absolutely requires ongoing emotional support for learners and robust professional development for teachers. These aren't afterthoughts, they're essential components.
All working together.
Yes. The article mentions a tool, the Interpreter Prodigy, as an example of this vision. It doesn't give answers, but guides users through problem solving, prompts reflection, suggests resources, helps organize thoughts. But the user does the core thinking. It integrates AI to amplify human learning, not replace it. That's the goal. Empower the learner to own their knowledge, keeping our human brains doing the vital work of understanding, connecting, creating, remembering.
That's a powerful vision. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive on owning learning in the age of AI. We looked back at Bloom's taxonomy, its strengths and weaknesses. We really dug into why emotion and human teachers are irreplaceable, even more so now.
Essential pieces.
We explored AI's potential as that cognitive scaffold, helping across all thinking levels, but also flagged the serious risks of passive use, that cognitive debt, the reduced ownership, the threat to core skills like reading and writing.
Those warnings are crucial.
And we landed on this idea of owning knowledge as the vital capstone, where learners step away from the tools and prove their understanding to themselves, ensuring it's truly internalized.
Our goal really was to give you a shortcut through this complex topic, to help you get informed about how education and technology are intersecting, focusing on why teachers and educational organizations are key, why students proving knowledge without AI is fundamental, and the real dangers of just passively consuming AI output.
It's about fostering that human-centered approach, welcoming everyone to a learning journey that's hopefully more effective and maybe even more joyful.
That's the hope.
So, as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a final thought, something to chew on. Ask yourself, what does truly owning knowledge mean for your learning journey right now, today? And how can you consciously build in those moments to step away from the tools, the AI, the search results, even the books, and really test yourself?
Can you explain it? Can you apply it without help? Can you connect it?
Taking that step to ensure the understanding you gain isn't just borrowed information, but something that becomes authentically, deeply yours. Because ultimately, learning isn't about the tools, it's about what you truly make your own.